Hello everyone. Today's story is about loyalty, betrayal, and a quiet kind of revenge that no one saw coming. It's about a woman who gave 18 years of her life fixing everything behind the scenes, only to be thrown out like she never mattered. But what happened next completely changed who really owned the power. The envelope made a soft scraping sound as it slid across the desk, thinner than I expected for 18 years of loyalty. My name is Evelyn Carter, I'm 38. Have you ever watched someone erase you, while smiling like you should thank them for it? He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced over his stomach, that same smug smirk he wore in every meeting. The glass wall behind him reflected both of us, but somehow I looked like the one fading. You were always just temp help, he said almost casually. The company's back where it belongs. With real family. Real family. The words hung there, heavy, rehearsed. Outside, I could hear the faint hum of printers, distant laughter from the marketing team, life continuing like nothing was breaking in this room. I didn't argue. Didn't defend the late nights, the silent fixes, the payroll I personally delayed to keep his name clean. I just nodded. My hand brushed the edge of the desk, smooth, cold, familiar. Like it remembered me even if he didn't. For a second, the reflection in the glass shifted. Or maybe it was just me finally seeing it clearly. I was never part of this place. I was the reason it survived. And somehow, that made me the easiest thing to erase. The hallway felt longer than usual. Not physically, just quieter. My heels echoed against the marble floor, sharp, steady, controlled. Each step sounded like it belonged to someone else. Someone who hadn't just been erased with a thin envelope and a smirk. Evelyn. I turned slightly. It was Daniel from accounting standing halfway out of his office, his voice low. That didn't look good. I gave him a small smile. Not reassurance, just closure. It's fine, I said. He hesitated like he wanted to ask more. But didn't. People here had learned that silence was safer than loyalty. I kept walking. Past the conference room where I'd spent nights rewriting reports he'd ruined. Past the framed photos of his family. His father shaking hands with investors, his brother cutting ribbons. Faces I'd protected from collapse more times than they'd ever know. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. For a moment I caught my reflection again in the steel panel. Still calm. Still composed. But there was something else now. Not anger. Not even hurt. Just space. 6 months ago I had stood in this exact spot holding a different envelope. Thicker. Heavier. Back then my hands had trembled. Now they didn't move at all. The doors slid shut. And as the building disappeared floor by floor, I realized something quiet, something steady. He thought he had ended my story. But he had just walked into the part one had already written for him. The elevator opened into the lobby with a soft, almost polite sound, like nothing had changed. But everything had. Miss Carter, wait. I paused, one hand still resting on my bag strap. It was Lena from HR walking toward me quickly, her heels uneven, her expression tight. They didn't tell us, she said quietly. We just got the notice this morning. Of course they didn't. They never did anything directly. Everything was always managed. I'm sure it was last minute, I replied, my voice steady. She looked at me like she knew that wasn't true. They're restructuring, she added, softer now. Family control again. I almost smiled at that. Family control. That phrase had been the shield behind every bad decision, every silent bailout I had covered for years. Behind her, the reception desk phone rang. Once, twice. Then stopped abruptly. Silence again. I left something upstairs, I said. It wasn't a question. Lena hesitated, then nodded slowly. You still have access, for now. For now. I turned without another word and walked back toward the elevators. The ride up felt different this time. Not heavy. Not uncertain. Just precise. When the doors opened, the floor was quieter than usual. My office door stood slightly open like it had been waiting. Inside everything was untouched. Except the chair. It was angled just slightly away from the desk. As if someone had sat there recently. Or expected to. I stepped inside, closed the door gently and walked straight to the bottom drawer. The key was still where I had left it. Unmoved. I turned it once. And as the drawer unlocked with a soft click, I realized something with absolute clarity. He hadn't fired me. He had simply triggered the part of the plan that required his arrogance. The drawer opened slowly, like it had been holding its breath. Inside, everything was exactly where I left it. Neatly stacked folders. A small black notebook. And beneath them, an envelope thicker than the one he had handed me minutes ago. I ran my fingers over it, feeling the weight. Not paper. Control. A soft knock came at the door. I didn't turn. Evelyn. Daniel's voice again, quieter this time. They're already talking about replacing you. Of course they were. They'll need someone, I replied calmly, sliding the notebook into my bag. They think it'll be quick, he added, almost bitter. Like you were replaceable. That word lingered. Replaceable. I finally looked back at him. For them, I said, it always looks easy, right before it isn't. He frowned slightly, like he didn't fully understand, but something in my tone made him step back anyway. Take care, he muttered before leaving. The door clicked shut. Silence returned. I picked up the envelope. For a brief second I hesitated, not from doubt but from memory. 6 months ago this same envelope had felt dangerous. Now it felt inevitable. I opened it just enough to see the documents inside. Signatures. Dates. Transfers. Every quiet correction I had ever made. Finally given a voice. Outside, somewhere down the hall, I heard laughter. Light. Careless. Unaware. I closed the envelope again and slipped it into my bag. Then I turned off the lights. The room fell into shadow, the chair barely visible now, still slightly turned, still waiting. But not for me. As I stepped out and pulled the door shut behind me, I understood something with perfect calm. They thought I was walking away empty-handed. But I was walking out with everything they had never bothered to notice. The parking lot smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was clear. I paused beside my car, keys resting in my palm, and looked back at the building. 18 years, reduced to a quiet exit and a locked drawer. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. Evelyn Carter, I said. A brief silence. Then a voice I recognized, but only from speakerphones and carefully managed introductions. Miss Carter, the man said. Calm. Measured. This is Richard Hale from the board. I leaned lightly against the car door, my reflection faint in the window. I was wondering when you'd call, I replied. Another pause. Slightly longer this time. You've always been perceptive, he said. Well, just prepared. I assume you received the update this morning, he continued. About your departure. That's one word for it. His tone shifted just a fraction. Less formal. More cautious. There are concerns, he admitted. Irregularities we've only recently been made aware of. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling the quiet settle around me. Not panic. Not fear. Just timing. Concerns don't appear overnight, I said softly. They're usually managed. Until they're not. And you believe they're not? He asked. I smiled just enough for myself. I believe, I said, opening my eyes, that Monday's board meeting will be very clarifying. Silence again. He understood. Not everything, but enough. We'd like you present, he said finally. I looked back at the building one last time. At the glass windows that had reflected me for years, without ever showing who was really in control. I'll be there, I said. Then I ended the call. The wind moved lightly across the empty lot, brushing against my sleeve. For a second, it almost felt like the building exhaled. Like it knew what was coming next. And as I got into my car, placing the envelope carefully on the passenger seat, I realized something steady, something final. Monday wasn't going to be a meeting. It was going to be a correction. Monday morning arrived without ceremony. No storm. No tension in the air. Just the quiet hum of a building that believed it was finally stable again. I stepped out of the elevator and walked toward the boardroom. The carpet softened my steps, but I could still feel each one. Measured, deliberate. Through the glass wall I saw them. The board members seated in a long row. Papers aligned. Coffee cups untouched. And him. Standing at the head of the table, adjusting his tie, smiling that same polished smile. The kind that only existed when he thought he had already won. A new chapter for the company, he was saying. Stronger. More focused. Back under proper leadership. A few nods. A few polite smiles. No one interrupted. I reached for the door handle. For a brief second, my reflection appeared in the glass again, calm, composed, unchanged. But the chair inside the room, the one at the head of the table, looked different today. Not waiting. Occupied. I pushed the door open. The sound cut through the room like a quiet crack. He turned first. His smile still in place. Until it wasn't. The room went still. Completely still. No papers moved. No chairs shifted. Just silence. I walked in without hesitation and placed my bag on the table. Then I looked directly at him. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. Just clarity. "You started without me," I said softly. No one spoke. Not yet. But I could see it now, in the way the board members avoided his eyes, in the way one of them slowly closed a folder he had been presenting. The shift had already begun. He just hadn't felt it yet. And as I took a seat, the seat he had been standing beside, I realized something quietly inevitable. This wasn't where I proved anything. This was where everything he built on my silence finally lost it. He let out a short laugh. Not confident, not relaxed. Just automatic. "I think there's been some confusion," he said, glancing at the board. "This is a closed meeting." No one agreed. No one moved. I rested my hands lightly on the table, feeling the smooth wood beneath my fingertips. Grounding. Familiar. "There's no confusion," I replied quietly. He straightened, the smile tightening at the edges. "You're no longer employed here." Pause. Then, "I know." The words landed softer than expected, but heavier. I reached into my bag and placed the envelope on the table. The same one I had carried out days ago. No one touched it. But everyone looked. "For 18 years, I continued, my voice steady, I corrected discrepancies. Quietly. Consistently. Without recognition." A board member shifted slightly. Another leaned forward. He didn't speak. Not this time. "I moved funds to cover losses," I said. "Rebalanced accounts. Deferred disclosures." His jaw tightened. Not anger. Recognition. "I didn't do it for you," I added softly. "I did it for the company." The room felt smaller now. Thicker. I slid the envelope forward. Inside it, every adjustment, every hidden fracture, every moment I had chosen silence over exposure, documented. Signed. Dated. "And 6 months ago," I said, meeting his eyes, "I stopped fixing them." That was it. That was the moment. The shift wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. One board member opened the envelope. Another removed his glasses. The quiet unraveling had begun. His voice came out lower now. "Careful. What exactly are you suggesting?" I leaned back slightly, the chair settling beneath me. "Nothing," I said. A beat. Then, "I'm just no longer protecting you." Silence. Heavy. Final. And in that silence, for the first time, he understood. No one raised their voice. That was the part people never expect. No shouting. No chaos. No dramatic collapse. Just quiet decisions, made by people who finally had enough information to stop pretending. The board member closest to me cleared his throat, flipping through the documents slowly. "These transfers," he murmured almost to himself. "They've been holding the company afloat." Another voice followed, sharper now. "And without them?" No one answered. They didn't need to. All eyes moved toward him. For the first time since I had known him, he didn't have anything prepared. No polished explanation. No rehearsed smile. Just silence. The kind that exposes everything. "I can explain this," he said finally, but even he heard it. The weakness in it. The same weakness I had been covering for years. I stood up slowly, smoothing my sleeve. Not as an exit. As a conclusion. "I'm sure you can," I said calmly. "But this time, it won't be me doing it for you." No anger. No satisfaction. Just truth, placed gently where it belonged. I picked up my bag, leaving the envelope behind. For a moment I glanced at the chair. Not his. Not mine. Just a seat that would now belong to someone who understood its weight. As I walked to the door, no one stopped me. No one asked me to stay. Because they didn't need to anymore. The correction had already begun. And for the first time in 18 years, I wasn't part of the system holding everything together. I was the reason it finally had to stand on its own. Outside, the hallway felt the same. Quiet. controlled, but lighter. Like something unseen had finally been released. Behind me, the door closed softly. No echo. No return. Just an ending that didn't need noise to be complete. I stepped into the elevator, watching the numbers descend, one floor at a time. Not falling, just moving forward. And as the doors opened to the lobby, I realized something steady, something earned. He didn't lose everything because I exposed him. He lost everything the moment I stopped saving him.